let's get into it. So, Xander, I know this is a hot topic for you. You recorded a video on YouTube, so shout out to that. I think it's one of our most popular videos actually on UTMs and how to track better. So, explain, what are some of the big mistakes that you're seeing these days?
Yeah, absolutely. I have about four that I want to walk through that I am kind of seeing more and more on client calls or working through some of these projects. So first things first, like UTMs are so critical because it's going to help you figure out your lead sourcing from a first touch, last touch, multi-touch perspective. We use it all the time for all of those custom object deployments because we actually have the life cycle source that is being generated, right? So it's something that we need to make sure that we're getting right when we're working with all of our clients. And some things that, like, the crux of it is UTMs are used to indicate how someone got to you. What did they do to get to your website when we're thinking about it from a digital perspective? Now, we also use it for offline engagements, which sometimes gets complicated for certain people because they're like, UTMs are digital. I don't know why I'm doing this in a list upload. We use it to normalize and get our lead source data. And then we also use it to stamp onto campaign members. So that way you can build out reporting and always use the same fields, even if it's offline. But something that I was noticing for a few engagements is that people were actually using it to indicate what somebody converted on. So they would be like, fills out any form, UTM campaign equals blah, 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 request a demo, white paper one. And I had to explain to them that, like, that's not a great approach to do because UTM campaign is saying, what was the campaign that drove them to the website? And maybe you drove them to go to the demo page, but they could have clicked around on the website and actually converted on a webinar registration. So if you're using that in your downstream automation to say what did they convert on, it's going to be inaccurate. And we uncovered quite a few workflows in Marketo that were set up that way that now we're kind of reconfiguring to do it appropriately. It's still useful information. So I always still recommend like having some sort of indicator of what was your call to action in your UTMs, but it doesn't mean that that's what they actually actioned on. I think
Why
that,
on that one? Why do you
yeah,
think people do that? Like, where are they getting this advice from, or do you think it's just kind of they think they see UTM campaign and they think, oh, that's what I should be doing, and they're just guessing? Where's it coming from? Do you think?
I think that there's kind of a common practice to just setting UTM campaign as a Salesforce campaign name. And so they kind of equate the two, like, well, I have a demo request Salesforce campaign. I'm driving them to the demo request. So I'll set UTM campaign as the demo request. And I mean, that's fine. It can work that way. I would venture to say that that might actually be like a UTM content. You're driving them to the demo request page to
Mhm.
show you what your CTA is. But yeah, I think that, we always feel that pain when we're working with clients, especially when they're not the MOPS person or the operator, where they're going, I have Salesforce campaigns, I have Marketo programs, I have UTM campaign, I have lead source campaign. Like there's a lot of intermixing of the terms. So I think that it's just something where usually, well, I was told to do this at my last job, so I did it at my last job, and then I took it to the next job, and I took it to the next job, as opposed to really thinking about, like, why am I setting these parameters?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So what's another one that you're seeing recently?
So it's along the same lines of UTM campaign, and that is not using that consistently, right? So I just gave that example of demo request. Demo request isn't a very useful UTM campaign parameter. Like you want to use UTM campaign to help you track your integrated campaigns effectively. So think of UTM campaign more as what is the theme that I'm driving. And if you're not doing integrated campaigns, maybe that's a great opportunity for your organization. I know we're talking about that right now of like, what does good marketing look like? Good
Mhm.
marketing has brand and it has integrated campaigns that is telling a thorough story, right? And so I was recently working with a client that fortunately has been using integrated campaigns and was asking me, okay, in this new world of reporting that we're building for them, how can I make sure that I can actually tie everything to my integrated campaigns? And that's where I recommended to them being able to use UTM campaign. So like you have a campaign name builder, you can use that campaign name builder or a variation of it to give you UTM campaign names. So don't just think of it like it's the demo request one. Think of it as it's my Q3 integrated campaign one
Hmm.
variation of that. So that way you
Yeah.
can really get some good dynamic data from that.
One thing to
Yeah.
note on that too, because I think UTM campaign is like heavily used in ads, and a lot of the time they will have the name of the ad campaign be populated in that field. So if you are going the approach where you want to see more consistency around like the actual integrated campaign and value, especially if you're working with an agency, you want to be very prescriptive around the value that they are using. If there's pushback there, then you might need to figure out, okay, well, what do we need an additional UTM for them or something like that? So they want to see that actual like ad campaign name in the same format that they're putting it in to Google. So just like a note on that, because I think a lot of the times those agencies, they just give them an offer and they're like, okay, now go do it, go run it. And so they're not actually controlling what UTMs are actually being used. The agency's just putting in whatever they feel like.
Yeah, 100%. And not one of the points that I was thinking about ahead of time, but you're not limited to 5 UTM parameters.
Mm.
You could have UTM underscore AdWords or UTM underscore ad campaign
Mhm.
or whatever it is that you want to use. So don't feel like you're limited to 5. Just make sure that you're also building your infrastructure to support more if you are creating any of these custom parameters. Speaking of paid media, like oftentimes you run into these scenarios where like the only person on the marketing team that's using UTMs is the paid media person. Everybody in the organization should be using UTMs, right? Quite frankly, if you're creating cadences for a sales engagement platform and you're doing some sort of integrated campaign, like you can UTM those as well. You have to work with the team. Maybe they don't want their plain text emails having UTMs, so you kind of have to find the middle ground. But don't just think of it as it's a paid media approach. It's like you need UTMs on your PR statements, on the anything that you have linked out. If you have content syndication content that you might want to have UTM parameters that are driving them to the website, like you could use UTMs there. You're trying to indicate how did they get to our website, so that way you can continue to refine and optimize those channels and optimize those messages. So it provides a lot of really great detail.
How have you found or any tips that you have on enabling the team to make sure they're always using UTMs, both for online and offline, making sure you're kind of plugging all the gaps and making sure that everyone is well enabled?
Yeah. So a few different areas. Something that we build out for clients that we work with, and I think that we have it on our website as well, is a UTM builder. And it's not just a one-time use UTM builder. Like you could go out to a website and use a UTM builder. It's not like there's anything fancy there. But what we what we like about ours is that every row gives you a new UTM. So you can actually see, you could go out on a monthly basis and say who's been creating UTMs. If you notice that there's somebody who has channels that you think should have UTMs and there's none posted, that might be an opportunity to engage with that person. Also, start to look at your data that you have coming in, because if you see the majority of your web traffic's coming in from web direct, that may be the case, but I would say that it's more likely that they're coming in from other channels and they're not being captured with UTMs, and so it's falsifying your web direct traffic.
Okay. I've got one other question for you, but see if there are any other
I
tips.
got one more bullet that I think is really important. And this is one that like we do with clients. We have some requirements that we work with clients, but I noticed that a lot of clients don't just have it before we get engage with them. And we have a YouTube video does outline like how you can get this set up, but that is actually accounting for your organic channels through UTMs. So what we mean by that is we work with our clients to actually create a custom script on the website. Oftentimes I will see where like if you have UTMs, I'll store those UTMs in cookies and then they get passed through, and that's great. But they're not necessarily thinking about all of the traffic that could be coming to the website that's not UTM'd. And so what we recommend doing is not just capturing if there's UTMs, but if there's not UTMs, look at the referring URL. Where did the traffic come from? If it came from Google, Yahoo, Bing, DuckDuckGo, we know that it's coming in from a search engine. If it's coming in from YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, but there's no UTMs, we know that we can attribute that to some organic social. And so think about it from like a layer, one layer below, and all of a sudden you really start to capture a lot better traffic instead of just reporting on all of those organic things as saying web direct.
That was going to be my question, actually. Yeah,
Sweet.
The take on the cooking side. Yeah. So, anything else to add there, Chrissy or Xander, or on that topic?
I think that the main thing with UTMs is just like just making sure that there's consistency and you have like rigor and diligence around it, and just thinking about all the people who have their hands in the pot of creating things that have UTMs tied to it, down from like your emails all the way out, like I said, to paid ads. You can even add UTMs for sales if they're doing like sales outbound and things like that. So yeah, just kind of getting into that and having that UTM builder, I think, is really great, but also just being very mindful of like your overall like diligencing to it, and making sure you're accounting for all of the different channels that you're promoting. Like Xander said, it'll just open your eyes more into what actually is working instead of giving a lot of that credit to direct. So
Perfect. Yeah, and if you want to go real deep on this, go check out Xander's video on our YouTube channel where he dives into UTMs. And I think, Xander, in that video, you show the flow chart that we have that explains what you just talked about around the cookie tracking, making sure that you're accounting for URLs that have UTMs, but then also making sure you're accounting for when someone comes in with a URL that does not have a UTM, but you can tell where they came from based on the referring information. So really good video. Check it out. And I think based on this conversation and that video, you'll be able to solve 99% of your UTM problems. So
love it.